What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Before I get started on the video, just want to let everybody know I will be on Authentic and the Beards channel at 1:30. He was on my channel last week, said I'd go on the Monday podcast this week. So instead of doing a Monday morning, celebration stream here, I'll be over there. And then tomorrow, I'll be doing a Giant stream with you guys. Plan to have a guest on that as well if he can make it. So really looking forward to that. Got a lot to talk about with the New York Giants. Of course, the New York Giants fresh off their second win of the season against the Carolina Panthers. And in this video, we're going to talk about the defense. We're going to talk about Joe Judge and how important of a game I think that this was for the head coach, even though we still got a lot to prove. And I'm going to talk about kind of not getting too carried away in terms of thinking that this team may be back. They still have a lot more to prove to me before I'm willing to buy into the New York Giants being back on track to being at least a formidable opponent this year in the NFL. The Giants still, we have to remember, are 2-5. They are still dealing with a ton of injuries, and they still have a very challenging schedule coming up. Before the year started, I had the Giants at 9 wins. Right now, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think they're going to sniff that. I still don't think they're going to sniff that. They have a lot more to prove to me before I believe that. If they could get to 4-6, which is what I had them at, sure. Do I think it's possible with our last 7 games we could win 5? Absolutely, if we're healthy. But winning 2 out of these next 3 against the Raiders, against the Chiefs, and against the Bucs is a very tall task. But you take it one game at a time. Giants going into this game were really banged up and coming off one of their most embarrassing victories in recent time against the LA Rams. A game in which, to me, was really the first game when I watched it that I thought the team quit on Joe Judge. I saw it over the last 10, 12 minutes of that game. It looked like the defense mailed it in. Joe Judge even kind of hinted at that in his post-game conference the previous week when he talked about that he basically wanted guys that were going to play for 60 minutes. Well, today, one thing you could certainly say about Joe Judge and the players that play for him, they gave a full effort start to finish. This team did not quit on their head coach, and they gave it everything that they had. So, for a coach that may or may not have been on the hot seat going into the game, and certainly was on the hot seat with the fan base, definitely had a much better showing. And I think the New York Giants worked with what they had. The defensive game plan, of course, was terrific. The Giants had 6 sacks. Azeez Ojulari now with 5.5 on the season, which now ties the New York Giants rookie record in terms of since it's been recorded. I know a lot of people pointed out that Lawrence Taylor had 9.5 in his rookie year, but sacks weren't a recorded stat at that point in time. But regardless, Ojulari off to a great start. The Giants also created a turnover, and the defense only surrendered 3 points. And it was the biggest margin of victory for a New York Giants football team dating all the way back to 2018, in which they beat the Washington football team 40-16 by 24 points. Yesterday, of course, they won by 22. So a very impressive victory for the New York Giants, especially when you factor in all the injuries on this football team. On the defensive end, we were relatively healthy, but of course you were still missing Blake Martinez, who was out for the year. But on the offensive end, you were missing Andrew Thomas. Matt Barrett went out from within the game, in which you basically had 5 XFL linemen after that. You, of course, without Saquon Barkley, you're without your top 3 wide receivers, yet Daniel Jones was able to find ways to make plays, one of which he caught probably the play of the year for the New York Giants, in which he had a one-handed snag down the right-handed sideline. But Daniel Jones, to me, and I know a lot of people are, here and there with him, whether or not he'll be a franchise quarterback with the Giants, that remains to be seen. But I think he has certainly displayed that he has grown as a quarterback, and I definitely think if he is put in a good situation, could be a successful quarterback in the NFL. I have no doubts about that. I've said that now throughout the year. Yes, did Daniel Jones have a hiccup last week? Absolutely. Daniel Jones played horrible. I think he saw that he had a bad supporting cast with all the injuries that occurred the previous week, and he tried to put the team on his back, and he made a number of really poor decisions. This week, he didn't do that against Carolina, and we talk about consistency with Daniel Jones. Last year, the year before, he'd have 1 or 2 good games, then he'd have 5 or 6 bad games. This year, he's really only had 1 bad game, and it was a horrible game. Like I said, one of his worst games of his career. He picked up off of that. He's had 2 okay performances. I think he's had 2 great performances. And yesterday, when you factor everything else in, I think you could certainly argue that this was a great performance, going up against the 3rd-ranked defense going into the league without all of those players that I talked about and without any support whatsoever. I thought Jason Garrett did a great job in terms of the play calling. I know a lot of people like to rag on him on the goal line. I know some people didn't like the play calling there. Got to get a little bit more creative. But in terms of rolling Daniel Jones out in the pocket without the help from that offensive line, I thought Garrett put Jones in the best position possible to succeed based off the supporting cast on this offense. So I want to tip my cap to him. Of course, Patrick Graham did a tremendous job, but we need this to keep up. Are the New York Giants starting to turn the corner on defense? Well, we're going to get a good taste of that going up against their next 3 opponents, because all of them could put points up on the board with the Kansas City Chiefs, Tampa Bay Bucs, and the Raiders. So We'll see just how much better this defense is. But yesterday, they certainly looked like they were getting the job done. Taking into account the opponent, I want to continue to say that. Without McCaffrey, their offensive line is not good at all, but we were getting consistent pressure, and we'll see if this is something to build off of going into the next week on Monday night, in which the New York Giants try to get to 3-5. Kansas City, I think, will probably win that game, if I'm being honest with you, especially because it's in Arrowhead. But they don't look like the same Kansas City Chiefs that we all know over the past 2 or 3 years. So maybe the New York Giants could pick on that defense and try to create some turnovers against Pat Mahomes. You never know. It's why they play the games. But we got a long way to go. By no means am I saying the Giants are a playoff team. I'm taking it in stride, 1 week at a time. I'm very, very happy with the effort that they put forth yesterday, though. And even to speak further about Daniel Jones, I looked into these stats. Yesterday, the New York Giants had one run for over 3 yards from the running back position in the first half. One. Daniel Jones had no support throughout the entirety of that game, and if we expect to beat some of these good opponents going forward, we're going to have to get both healthy and better on that offensive line. I mean, there's no doubts about it, and with Andrew Thomas on the IR, he won't be able to come back until the Bucs game, so it's certainly going to be a tall task, and the Giants will have to get creative in the run game to try to create some splash plays. Daniel Jones, as of now, is still their biggest threat in the run game. They did get a little creative throughout the course of that game. The pitch play to Booker worked very well on the 9-yard gain, and we'll see if Garrett and this offense could get the job done. But I want to circle back to Joe Judge. A lot of people were down on Joe Judge last week, rightfully so. This week, I think you need to at least say to yourself, okay, maybe he could gain me back in terms of my trust with him as a head coach for this football team going forward, because the team certainly came out with a good effort, and we'll see what they could build off of going forward. But I wanted to jump into some of the quotes that Joe Judge had to say after the game. This is what he had to say to the media. We're a resilient team, head coach Joe Judge told reporters after the game. You guys ask me all the time, how do I see the guys come to work? How can I gauge the mood in the building? I tell you all the time, I do it based on how they show up to work, how they meet, their intent in their actions, and what they're doing, how they practice on the field. So that's my barometer. That's my measuring stick right there. When the team comes in, they work, they prepare, and they do everything necessary to have success. They work together. That's when you know your team is moving in the right direction. I see it from our guys every week. So Joe Judge is continuing to, I guess, say that they're building week by week, similar to the message that he had last year. You can't continue to do that year in and year out, though. The Giants cannot get off the slow start after slow start after slow start, because you put yourself behind the 8 ball. And right now at 2-5, we got a lot of climbing to do, and we'll see if we can do it against Kansas City Chiefs. Then I wanted to jump into what Daniel Jones had to say. I think it was an important win for us. We've had some tough games and some close games, but we believe who we are as a team, what we're doing as a team, and where we're going. We've just got to keep trusting that quarterback, Daniel Jones said, correct things that didn't go well today and build off things that went well. It's a process, and we understand that. And we certainly trust and have a lot of belief in what we're doing. So you love to hear what you hear there out of Daniel Jones, and it is a process. We all know that the NFL teams get better and worse throughout the course of the season, and you want to be playing your best football at the end of the year. But are the New York Giants good enough to win 9 games, which is what I think the fan base is looking for, to have a winning season this year? At this point in time, well, to do that, the Giants would have to go 7-3 the rest of the way. And that's a very tall order, especially with all the injuries that we have. But it's one game at a time, and we'll see what they can do against the Kansas City Chiefs. Like I said, if they could win 2 out of 3 and get to 4-6, I will be completely back on board with my preseason prediction of 9-8. Because I look at our last 7 games. Do I think we could beat the Eagles twice? I do. Do I think we could beat the Bears if we're healthy? I do. Do I think we could beat the 1-6 Miami Dolphins? I do. Do I think we could beat the Washington football team at home? I do. If we're healthy and we're playing well like we did yesterday. I think it's possible, absolutely. But it's going to be very hard for them to convince me that they could get to that point until I start to see them win some games over their next 3. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out, but I think this is a day where you should be happy with the performance by the football team, beating the Carolina Panthers in the method in which the New York Giants did, seeing the defense show us what we thought and what we expected going into the year, creating a turnover, having 6 sacks, looking dominant on that end. So you should be happy, you should take it in, but you should also realize there's a long way to go before this team gets to be a good football team. And we still have a ton of injuries. The Giants have to get healthy if we intend to go on any kind of run, but it's 1 week at a time. It's 1 game at a time. Very happy with the effort by the New York Giants, and at least for now, at least the seat for Joe Judge is a little less hot. He's still, he's still on the hot seat, but we turned the temperature down just a little bit. We'll see the effort he comes out against the Kansas City Chiefs, but I was really happy with the way the team responded off that loss the previous week against the LA Rams. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.